lay of the land. Where are we, where are the screens and setup options, and I just want to give you a quick overview of that. As you probably already know, we're well integrated in all the screens in Mass 90 Sage 100. So if I were to, for example, be in item maintenance, I can go to the multi-bin tab and see multi-bin inventory, and I can, if I'm printing pick sheets, we're right there too, and sales order entry. So you don't exactly always have to go out of the regular Mass 90 screens to do things. The setup screens for a given warehouse, for product lines, are right on those screens and so on. So some of the differences to note. So under inventory and then setup, we can see the multi-bin options screen, and that's all company-wide options for multi-bin and warehouse management. Location maintenance, that's the creation and changes to any bin location. Region maintenance are those zones that you want to define for your locations. And then pallet ID and ID type code maintenance are used for license plate, pallet, and ID codes. So under the setup menu, we have these options here, and then under warehouse code maintenance, and I'll go ahead and take us in real quick so we can quickly see it. We provide a multi-bin button here, and then you can see some staging locations, and then your ability to turn off our software for a given warehouse. If I were to go in product line maintenance, I can see the same option to turn off our software for a given product line, and then other options, which we'll talk about today, directed picking and directed put away options. And then under the main menu, we provide a couple inquiry screens, like the location inquiry screen and the pallet ID inquiry screen used for license plate. But the rest of the system is used or set up is right here under the setup menu, and then all other options are under these menus. One last thing to mention is the reports, of course, and our reports that we provide that are multi-bin sensitive are right under the regular Mass 90 reports here, and then and these are ours, which we will discuss thoroughly today. The other one thing to note is under the Library Master Setup menu, we provide a registration screen. I'll go ahead and show that here to you. And this gives us the ability to set a registration key to activate the software that's licensed for use. The most basic is the distribution package, and then the multi-bin warehouse management for manufacturing, which is the work order, and for bill of materials here. And then the expiration date, vendor lot traceability, license plate, and catch weight, and wave batch shipping control is right there. So what happens is when you're doing an installation, we typically provide a license key, and what you'll do is you'll copy that under the ACS group folder, and I'll show you under my folder here. So under the Mass 90 folder, and then there's the ACS group folder, and you drop it in here, and then we ask you to come into this registration screen and then hit the activate button, and then the software is licensed for those items that have been purchased. And then what you do is then you typically start off in a test company. You don't want to prepare your new operations for multi-bin and warehouse management in your live company. We ask you to prepare in a test company, and then so then what you do, and I should add, there's one more step after installing it or activating it. We ask you to hit this prepare data, and when you do that, you can hit this all button, and that will just go through all the companies and just set the data as it's supposed to be for all companies. So basically, that is how you do an installation. It's that simple. And then when you activate it for your test company, you'll come into the option screen, and then you'll at least turn on this first option in the upper left-hand corner, enable multi-bin for this company. Obviously, you'll turn on other related add-ons if applicable, and they're right here in the upper left-hand corner. And then when you hit accept, then it will take you through to initialize inventory by warehouse for your company. So what we say here when we initialize inventory for a given warehouse is it will take either the regular MAS 90 bin locations that you might have in inventory maintenance, and I could show you what that is. If I come over here, hit the quantity button, and you'll surely recognize the infamous single bin location. So if a user has been using that for years, we can, there's a nice checkbox on there to swoop that in, create that bin location for you, and put all your inventory into that location. Some businesses don't, or some businesses have used that field as a means to type in more than one bin location, or maybe it's not some old information or unreliable information, in which case when you go initialize each warehouse, you can put all the inventory into a single bin location. And then thereafter, you can import your bin locations. So yeah, that's very easy to do. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And then you can import primary bin locations if you have some. And then you can import a physical count if you want to, and it's pretty simple to do. Typically when you go live, you want to do the same steps in the live company when you're ready, and then import or start keying in or utilizing RF handhelds to do a physical count, and so that's how you do it. You don't have to activate all warehouses. You don't have to activate all product lines. But I realize that's a mouthful to get us started here, but they just wanted to get that out of the way so that we know those features. Now the way we do this is Brandy Ford is on the phone too, and so she's going to help monitor your questions, and we'll open up the phone lines if need be. We'll pause about every 15 minutes or so, and if you have questions, feel welcome to raise your hand, send your questions through, and she'll bring attention to that. And of course, I'll pause as we go, and which I will here in a minute. And then so hopefully you'll enjoy everything we got today, and we'll do really good. So here, why don't we just pause for 10, 15 seconds here. Let's see, are there any questions here to get us off the ground?
So far, no hands and no questions in the questions box.
Okay, real good. Okay, I like to say that, hopefully you enjoy the coffee that we have in the back and the donuts. So hopefully it's real good, and let's see what we can do today. So the software provides multi-bin warehouse management, and that includes directed picking and directed put away. But sometimes I like to start here from talking about my inventory here in item maintenance. This gives us a good overview of some of the features we have in the software, and then we can use that for directed picking and directed put away. Every transaction requires a bin location, and so if you're receiving goods, you got to select the bin location, or if you're transferring inventory, you need a bin location, or you're shipping goods, you need a bin location. And so we have intelligence for different kinds of locations, and then features, directed picking and directed put away, to help automate where to put goods away and which goods to pick. And so today you're looking at my inventory under the multi-bin tab. We have our inventory here in the middle, and some drill down and some utilities here on the right-hand side. So here to go down the line here, and let me see if this is a little easier view. No, I'll stick with this one. So here you're seeing my inventory in different bin locations. Here on the left-hand side, these are the bin locations. You have location types, and we have different location types. They are designated in bin location maintenance, and so you can call a bin location one as primary. Primary to us might mean two things. One is maybe that's a location that's right next to the shipping dock, and you really, really want to ship from there first, if at all possible. Or it could be a fixated bin location assigned to an item, and there too, typically when you do those sort of things, you want to ship from there first. And put away can apply the same way, where you can put goods away there too. But so how do you set up a primary bin location? The main way here is to click on this button and designate the primary bin locations here. You can note that we have up to 5 right here in the regular pick area, and then in the overflow area you can designate 3 more. Typically a business has 1 or 2, so this is definitely overkill for most every business. Note that we can designate the minimum quantity and maximum quantity that we'd like into that location for that item. That way we can run a primary bin location replenishment report that's under inventory reports, and what it will do is it will look at the minimum quantity as a trigger to designate replenishment. Now replenishment it will look at this maximum quantity here, or if you set this to 0, it will look at the maximum quantity that you set up in the location, in the actual bin location that you can set there. So for primary bin locations, you can come in here, and of course you can import it too. And then, so there's the primary pick locations and pick locations. The pick location is just a regular bin location in the system, and you can have a million of them. You can have an infinite number of pick locations, and then you have overflow locations. Overflow locations have a couple features to them that tend to be beneficial. Here I'll go back into the setup screen, and note here you can designate the quantity that you want that would necessitate picking out of the overflow area. So maybe you have standard unit of measure items in your primary pick location, and maybe if you have a large order, you don't want to deplete your primary pick location or your regular pick area. And so by designating a quantity to say that tell the picker to go in the overflow area is why we do this. And then in options and multi-bin options, the company-wide one, you can designate unit of measure code. So if you were to designate a case, pack, pallet, or what have you, there too, those can justify going into the overflow area too. We do it on the opposite side here for put away, and so you could designate a quantity for the overflow for goods to go into the overflow area. So we have overflow locations, then we have staging locations. I flashed that earlier in warehouse code maintenance, and let me just talk about that a little bit further now. I'm going to go into warehouse code maintenance, and we have different kinds of staging locations. Most popular is the receiving dock, and note that we'll go purchase order receipt of goods, and then and so you can use that to help automate receipt of goods because maybe you want all your goods to go to that staging location. And staging locations are also beneficial for shipping, so when maybe I'm moving goods into a staging location, or return of goods. Maybe if I'm using RMA and I have a very large RMA, and I can have the system automatically put that bin location. Of course, I keep talking like that. You can always put in the system can always put in staging locations for you, or primary pick locations. And we'll talk about those as we get into options. And then on the manufacturing, you can designate staging locations for your raw materials. As you can see here, we have raw materials for bill of materials, raw materials for work order lines, and then for finished goods, as you produce goods, you can have staging locations. So you can designate these staging locations. The system has sensitivity to know, hey, this is a staging location. I got to be a little bit different when I think about putting goods away, and there's other things sensitive. When you're printing a put away report, it's sensitive to say, look, I have a staging location. I know that I can look at that location to advise to put goods away. So come back into my screen over here. There's 2 other location types, floor and other. And they're much like a pick 2 or pick 3. You'll see as you're doing directed picking, you can designate priorities in certain areas of your warehouse, and that's where those tend to be beneficial. Regions. We can use region codes. That's nothing more than a zone in your warehouse. So in the setup of the location, you can designate those regions, and then that way you can help focus put-aways. So maybe you want goods in certain zones in your warehouse, and it could also be used on the picking side too. Then you can see in the description column here we have some red notations, and we utilize that in order to tell you of certain special characteristics or special things going on. So this one that's for quality staging, note that it says dis and then that's SO for sales order, disabled sales order. So that means in the location for my quality staging location, it's disabled from sales order, so no one can get at that inventory. And then at this other location, which is called stage ASNet, it's disabled for this customer number 01. I'm disabled for all customers except for 01 ASNet, and that means I'm reserving inventory just for that customer. And we'll talk more about what some of the nice features behind that. So date received, this is the last received date that the inventory went into location. A real nice feature in the system is to keep track of that date. So you lot serial goods, you know how old your goods are. But if you don't have lot serial goods and you want to know if you want to age your goods, we can do that utilizing this last received date in a bin location. Inventory quantity on hand. This is of course how many the quantity on hand physically in the location. Allocated is what's been reserved for in a transaction. So that can include invoice data entry, any transaction where you're committing inventory, and of course directed picking, maybe as you're picking goods, or if you reserved in a sales order, and so that you can see that I have some inventory locked down here. If I were to click on this alloc button over here, I can drill down to what inventory has been reserved. You can see that I have some in sales order entry or in invoicing. And if it's an SO entry, that may mean because I reserved it for that customer because I'm waiting on other goods to come in, or it's because I'm doing directed picking and I reserved it for the sales order as I printed pick sheets, and so then that would reserve the goods just for this order until it's actually shipped and invoiced. So these are the allocations. We reserve we commonly call this allocations. What's hard allocated or quantity allocated. So then we have the difference, of course, what's net available. If we were to scroll to the right over here, the last issue date, that's the last date inventory went out. And this counted date, that's the last date the inventory was counted out of the bin location. And we use that information to help with physical count. So, and then the sales quantity available, this is looking at what quantity on hand I have here. It's taken into account of my unit of measure conversion factor in this case I have none. It's just each is across the board. But it will take account for if inventory is disabled, and so you could see here my net sales available here has been reduced because I have some inventory here in quality control, or quality bin location. So as you saw earlier, I drilled down for my hard allocations of inventory here, and I was clicking in this button over here to get in some of the setup options. For this item, I designated primary bin locations and some overflow settings. Then over here for directed picking and directed put away, I can override settings for a given item. So the way that works is if I'm going to move over here on the left-hand side under inventory, and this is setup, and then the multi-bin options, I can designate my company-wide options here. I can override settings for a product line over here in product line maintenance, but then I can override my picking and put away settings for any item here, and that's what those are about. I'll talk about those as we get further along here. Detail, this is detail transaction history. This is, of course, all the goods that the movement of inventory, whether it be you sold it or you received it or you transferred it. And we keep a detailed history of everything. So in regular Mass 90, maybe there was one transaction line. So let's say you sold something, it came out of, and if it came out of 5 different bin locations, in regular Mass 90 audit trail, there's one detailed history record audit trail. So in our system, we complement that. So you still have all the regular Mass 90 audit trail information, but in addition, we have our own file where we're keeping track of things. And so that sale, which came out of 4 bin locations, we'd have 4 records. So you know which bin location every item comes out of, goes into in every transaction that goes on. We also keep track of additional information that regular Mass 90 doesn't, like who did the transaction. Also, if you move inventory from one location to another, we're keeping track of it. And you'll see as I do transfers, we keep track of that. And the RF handhelds that tie into the system work with the same application, and it has the same level audit trail, so you know who does what in the warehouse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip right over here. Let's see. Let's work on this item right here. This is a FIFO valued item, and let's introduce you to some of the transfer programs. So here you can see I have inventory in 4 different bin locations, including the receiving dock here. And let's say I'm transferring inventory out of the receiving dock. So I'm going to do a transfer, and I'm going to do 100 units into a certain bin location. And by the way, what I did, I moved too fast there. I apologize. Here, let me hit cancel on that. I clicked on this item, and that highlighted this single button here. So there's 2 different transfer programs. There's this one over here too. So this one it transfers 1 item at a time. If I click here, I'm going to transfer 100 over into location C40L. When I do the transfer, it's registering the transfer goods into this location, and then we have an audit trail right away for that movement of goods coming out of one location and into the other location. Then what happens is we provide this what we call group transfer, and this allows you to move a lot of goods at the same time. So I can click here, I can select each line like this to say I want to move this one. I can click on the green button to select them all. I can designate a destination bin location like so, hit transfer, and it will move all my inventory just like that. So then if I were to look at the opposite side here by bin location for some of my inventory, and let me pull up something juicy here. Here. There's only 2 items here, but if I were to select a transfer, I could do a single transfer from one location to another, just like I showed you earlier. And then I can do the group transfer, which will select all the inventory in this location and let me move from this location to another. Very handy if you're rotating inventory, clearing out locations, and so on. So let me see if there's something else here I can show you. There's some sensitivity in this grid in the tree, pardon me, on the left-hand side, and I was hoping to take advantage of that. So let's see here. Well, let me back up to this one. I think this one is decent. So if I were to click on this item right here in the tree, then I can do the group transfer here. Note what it will do is it will select all my lotted inventory just like that. Notice it selected that item, all the lots in here, and then it already pre-selected. Obviously, if I don't want to move something, I can unselect it. So now all I have to do is select the destination bin location. This is very handy if I have serialized goods. In fact, I might have an example of that if I were to come in here to GB, the infamous GB. I got some of this inventory disabled for certain customer numbers, but here's location C30L, and here now you can, well, a lot of it's allocated on an order. But I can, so for a serial number, I can move a lot of serial numbers at the same time by selecting it here from the left-hand side and then hitting that group transfer. But these transfer programs, the one thing you need to know is this is based on security. So if I were to go into role maintenance, and I'll go check out my infamous super role security settings here, you can see here that we provide the ability to provide quick transfers. So you can give rights to someone that has to do transfers. That applies to inventory maintenance, bin location maintenance, and inventory inquiry. So someone can have inquiry rights for inventory, but yet you can give them rights to do transfers still. And that is a nice thing. Just one thing to note, the group transfer, the feature which transfers a lot of inventory at the same time, that's only good in the maintenance programs, not in the inquiry program. Since I'm here for security, let me talk about some of these settings, and then we'll apply it as we go. So we talked about the quick transfer security. Then you have the ability to put goods on hold. So that's putting goods on hold on the fly. I can release them, so I can give rights to someone to release the goods from being on hold. Add bin locations on the fly, so as you're doing a transaction where you're like receiving, where you're not committing inventory, or in other places where you're not committing inventory, like a transfer, you can add locations on the fly. Really handy when you're setting up a new system. Kind of good idea to turn it off as you get going. That way you don't have everybody creating locations with misspellings and so on. This is a supervisor-only option to override quantities. Rarely used anymore. So these options here, you can set as you desire in the beginning, and then as time goes by, change them as desired. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pause for 1 second here and see if there's any questions from what we talked about here on using inventory maintenance and some of the transfer programs. And then next I'll talk about the setup of a location, some do's and don'ts, and then we'll get right on to receiving and shipping. So is there any questions here?
We've had a little bit of discussion over here in the questions box, but I think unless anybody wants to raise their hand, I think we've resolved most everything, at least until we get to the bill of materials part.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, bill of materials. That's we're years from getting. I'm kidding. Well, maybe we'll get there in about hopefully in about 40 minutes. How about that?
Fantastic.
I know that might sound so long. We'll try to keep it entertaining. So keep it interesting at that. So here we were looking at our inventory. Pardon me. Back to inventory. So here we're looking at our inventory. It's sort of interesting here on my serialized inventory. A lot of it's been reserved here out of this location 00193, and then it was reserved for this certain customer. I'll show you how that was done. The reason there's this location in here that says this, that's a great example of using a location as a tied to a sales order. So that's definitely a feature you can do. So let's pull up that location. Let's see here. So that's the very first one, isn't it? So there's our inventory, looking at it from the perspective of the bin location. And just to show you here on the group transfer, I can go in here like this and select, and I can choose to select all my serialized items in this one location. I can designate a new bin location just like that and hit transfer, and it would move all my inventory just like that with the audit trail just like that. Oh yeah, and if I selected it over here, as you saw earlier, it will auto-select it just like this here, and all I have to do is select it like that. So then the creation of a bin location is like this. Put in the warehouse code, and this is my bin location, and that's a 15-character field. Hit enter, and then hit accept, and you're done. You've created a bin location. It can be that simple. When you're importing them, you'll use Visual Integrator, and I normally have a job in here. Oh, I don't have any jobs. How is that possible? So I'll just designate one here. So you select for the bin locations, it's the IM404 bin location. And this is a new job. And this is the required information, warehouse code and bin location. So if you get an Excel spreadsheet with 1,000 bin locations, you can import them just like that. The business object will take care of the initial setup required. And a lot of times when you get set up right off the ground, this is great to just do it like this. And then as you want to change your system and you, let's say, for directed put away, you want to put capacity settings, or you want to designate certain locations as overflow, you can refine your import and change it, so on. But this is a great way to get going and just get all your bin locations in there. That way you can get working on the system. And so go back in here to the bin location, and there's that new bin location I just created. I can delete it because I have no inventory in there. And so let's go back to this one here. So the setup of a bin location. Just like I said, the setup of a bin location, it's as easy as putting in the warehouse code and bin location. And then let me work backwards a little bit of what's the priority when you get going, and then some of the other, and then apply it to other features in the system. So, number one, location type. All bin locations, as you can tell right here, are designated as a pick location unless you come in here and change it. So I can come in here and designate as an overflow or staging location, and then, if you recall, floor and other is much like a pick 1, pick 2, or pick 2, pick 3 kind of locations, just as sundry pick locations. I could designate a location as a primary bin location. I might do that because I can let the system automatically pick from those goods, those locations first, and when inventory lands into a primary pick location, I can designate it as primary, as the item primary to that bin location, and so picking would be first out of that bin location. I don't have to do that. I can leave this blank, this bin location, or this option blank, and then earlier where I showed you the setup for primary bin locations, when I do the setup over there, it knows to call it a primary bin location over here, and it will do that for you. And if I could show you another option here in the options area, there's this option that says auto assign primary bin locations. And the way that checkbox works is it will say, if that's on, sorry, I'm jumping around on screens here. It says, if that's on, and then if this checkbox is on, then what it will do is it will automatically put call the item as primary within that location. If the option's off, then it will not do that, and it won't call it as a primary bin location immediately just because you put inventory into that location. Where would I use that? If I have an area next to the shipping dock that where inventory moves around and the item's not fixated into a location, this is a great option to have, and I recommend it highly. If the locations are fixated and for certain items anywhere in the warehouse or in the front area or what have you, and the locations don't tend to move on a regular basis, the inventory does not move into other locations, then it's not a bad idea to leave that automatic feature off. Now in this case, I click this on. It's saying, hey, there's inventory in here. Do you want to call them primary? And I'm just going to hit cancel on not. So, but anyway, this is the dynamics of primary bin locations and the automatic settings. This location, let's see. Oh yeah. If you recall over here, we had the inventory reserved here for Allen AP, that customer number. So this is how that was done with this selection here. So I can reserve inventory just for this customer by designating that customer number here. I can also do it by customer type, the 4-character field, in customer maintenance. If I have my quality control bin location, I can do this, disallow selection in sales order. And this is great because, and this other option is good too, because maybe that's my returner goods, or these are goods that are in for inspection and quality control review and approval. And this will lock down inventory. So this makes it so that no one can manually select it in sales order, and of course manufacturing for bill of materials and work order. And then the automatic features, of course, look at that too and we'll refrain from taking that inventory. Okay, so then the other settings in the system tend to pertain to directed put away. So in the when a business starts off with our system, it's great to get the inventory settled up, then get shipping going. That's very important. And then features like directed put away, where the system is advising where to put goods, tend to be the laggard kind of procedure, or not even done at all. Many businesses don't use directed put away. But those businesses that do want that advice and want to help get advisement on where to put goods and try to have a system involved for that, we can do that. So I'm just going to cover this in overview fashion, but then we'll get more in depth here as we get into the subject of directed put away. Capacity settings, this is where you designate how much can go into this location. You can do that by the number of units that go in there and using a volume field. These other disabled fields are for license plates, so I can designate number of pallets, number of case packs, and so on, because they have a different factor involved rather than just taking quantity times item. These are put away options over here, and then over here, the ability to designate region codes and aisles. Region codes, as you recall, is to set up zones in my warehouse, and then a subset of zones in the warehouse are aisles. And you can set up regular aisles in the to my bin location, and we can use that in directed put away. So that's my discussion on bin locations. We're going to get into some of the options here for you doing receiving, and then we'll get right into shipping. Are there any questions? Let's pause here for 1 second and see if there's anything that we need to answer here. Are we good?
I just covered the one thing you had to worry about.
There we go. That's Brandy. She's just taking care of you, and here we go. Okay, so then let's move along and let's get into some good stuff here. I have two inventory screens up down here, and I'll get rid of at least one of them here. So let's talk about doing receipt of goods. So here I went in multi-bin options, and these are our company-wide options. I'm going to cover the details of everything here soon. Let me just jump over to here to receiving and put away. And I just want to talk about this top section right now. This is your ability to automatically set a bin location in there as you're entering receipt of goods. Now, it could be that you don't want anything done at all, and that's why we provide that no prompt, no auto assign. And that's great because you can then, as you're doing receipt of goods data entry, you designate the quantity received, you indicate the bin location inventory goes to and the quantity, and then you're done. That's great in the scenario where the goods have come in, and then you put the goods away. There's a put away report retained. That information comes back to the person who's doing data entry for receipt of goods, and then they can enter the bin location that it came into. Now, that typically is not the way things are done with RF handhelds either. But so what I can do, though, is I can auto-assign goods to a primary bin location or warehouse staging location. So typically, if you put your goods into a primary bin location, this will save a lot of time. And of course, if there's exceptions, you can just override the bin location and so on. But here, I'm going to select this option to warehouse staging location, and then this option over here, it says, when do I assign the location? That's what it's asking. At the time at the header, so as you can see here, it says allocate receive complete header or a quantity received line. So that header says when you recall, and I'll take you there in a second, receipt of goods, you go from the header to the lines panel, and it gives you the option to do receive complete. If you have non-lot serial goods like FIFO, LIFO, or average, standard cost, and all that, you can auto-assign the bin location right there and then, and you're done. The lines option does it at the time when the person enters the quantity received, and that's great, especially if you have lot serial goods, or if you don't get typically receive complete POs. This will save a little extra time if if it's done in this manner. And that's what I'm going to do right now. We have also, there's this option to enter to automatically increment a lot serial number if you'd like to use it. The algorithm is the let's see, the year, month, and the receipt number in the period, whether it be, let's say, in the month, the period being the month, and then it will increment that for you. And if you wanted to utilize that, that's in there for you. And some users do, and that's why we have a checkbox. If it's unchecked, then the feature is turned off, receipt of goods. Okay, so warehouse staging locations, and if you recall, the staging locations are created in warehouse code maintenance in here, and I have the receiving bin location in there. So here I'm going to select a, I'm going to probably have to create a new purchase order as I usually process them here, and I'll select any old vendor, any old sales tax. We don't care about sales tax. I'm going to select a couple different items. I'm going to select this FIFO item and a lot valued, and this one's cases. I want to do eaches right now. It's a little too much there. We'll just do 100. So here I have a FIFO item, and you know what? We'll just do a serialized item here. I think this one is going to be serial here, and we'll just do 10. So there we go. That was PO number 10031. Okay. If you're using put away, our put away features in purchase order printing, we have a template in there where you can select, and you can print a put away report based on purchase order number. So maybe you're expecting the goods, or you receive the goods, select the purchase order number here, print the put away report by purchase order. The other way of doing a put away report is after you receive the goods. You would receive it into your receiving staging location, for example, and then under here you can select, you can print the put away report. So when I get that point clear, just in the procedures, of course, if you're not utilizing it, just skip that part. So here I'm going to do my receipt of goods, do the next number, select my purchase order, and I go to lines. If you recall, I selected the lines option, in which it's going to put in the bin location as I enter the quantity received. This is my FIFO item. Put it through. All done. I didn't see anything. Now I'll click back in here so you can see what was done. That was my little grid screen, and here this is the receiving and 100 units assigned to that bin location. Of course, if I wanted to change this, I can, and so on. These are UDF fields, and you can create, I didn't talk much about that, but we do have the ability to create UDF fields. There's a specific way of doing it, and we automate many features in the system. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay, so here put my 100 units to the to there, and then here's my lot valued item. I need to put a lot number, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, receiving, and those are my UDF fields once again. And then this is my my serialized item, and in this case I want to utilize the add serial. I think this is the right one. And here I'll designate I'll put in receiving. And when I do that, then it will auto-create my 10 receipt of the serial numbers, auto-increment like so. And I'm sure everybody knows all those features forever and so on. That's my receipt of goods. If I had the procedure in place to put the goods away and then to record the bin location, of course, I wouldn't have that the receiving bin location put in there automatically. Also, if I've been using the RF handhelds, I would select the purchase order number, the item that I'm receiving, the quantity received, and the bin location it went to. Of course, the staging location, then that can repeat for you and save time data entry. And then in this case, I wanted you just to see the audit trail. We provide a sub-report and crystal reports for various audit trail information and for picking information on the sales order side. And here you can see the sub-reports providing an audit trail of the bin locations that I receive my inventory into, and so on. And I could, in this example, I'll go ahead and receive all of my inventory in. And now this way you can see the inventory now in the bin location. Let's see if I had a bin location down here. I didn't. And I'll take us into receiving. And I have the hold feature. So I didn't talk about the hold. I can put goods on hold automatically with this feature. Auto put goods on hold. And typically you won't use that feature. That was accidental on my part. But what that did was put the goods on hold so the quality control can go through the inventory and then release it. Note that I have hold and release right, so that, note that I'm clicking in here and see the little go. That gives me the ability to release it just like that. Now I release the inventory, and now it's accessible to anyone who's looking at the receiving bin location. When I did the release, there was a release. There's a little audit trail of who released it, and so on. If I click back on this item here, this one here, note it will put. I can have the option to put it on hold. This one doesn't give me the option to put it on hold because there's inventory allocated to it. There's a sales order or something here. If I go over here to allocations, I can see there's an invoice that selected it out of the receiving dock. A little strange, but it was done that way. Okay, so so that's just my inventory now in receiving. Now I can print a put away report. So I'll go over here to multi-bin put away report, and I'll select my warehouse. So when I select the warehouse, it's looking at the receiving staging location, and then I can assign a region code to different bin locations. So if I were to go in here, see how in the region code I select REC, and in quality control I have REC2. And this way the system will look at the REC as a group of bin locations, staging locations that are waiting for goods to be put away. And the report now will look at all goods that are not on hold and give advice to put them away. Note that, see how it's looking at the from locations here, the quality and the receiving, and this is some of my inventory. You can see that I had a lot of inventory here for serialized goods. I only released one. All the other 9 are still on hold, and it's not advising to put it anywhere. But it will advise on putting goods away on certain algorithms, and we'll talk about that when we right after directed picking. But I just want to cover this step of directed put away if you desire to use it. Once the goods are now in the receiving or what have you, you can choose to do transfers to move the goods. If you're using RF handhelds, you do it that way too. In this case, this is that one serialized item, and of course I could use these same transfer programs. The other way of doing transfers is using inventory transaction entry. We're very well integrated in here. If you're transferring inventory to warehouses which are disabled, it's sensitive to that, and on and on and on. But here in this case, if I were to select just the same warehouse, 0000 to 000, you can only do this with our software in the system of selecting the same warehouse. And so I'll select an item, say I'll select 100 to transfer, and this is a FIFO valued item. So I can click the lookup to designate the item that I want to transfer and designate the quantity. Oh, there's only 90 of those, and a destination bin location like that. I'm going to widen this up just a little bit. The other way of selecting inventory here, I'll X that out, is using this feature right here, and it's called Load Lots feature, and that will show everything on my screen so that I can now do a grid-based transfer. I'm moving 100 units, so here, let's say I'm moving all 40 here to another location, and here I'll move the rest here of 60 units let's say to A50L also. So note that when I did data entry, I'm going left to right. You can't go fill out a column and then fill out another column. You move left to right using these grids, and when you have the inventory in this fashion on the screen. I'll cancel out of there, and then let me do the lot valued item just so you can see the way we work in here. When you're selecting a lot, in this case I'm doing the list mode, and note that I have this lot 234 in a few locations. So if I were to select this lot from this location, it will autofill that location for me, and it saves a lot of time. So if I were to type lot 234 here, it will stop at the location, and then I have to key that information in of that of the location. So obviously using the lookup may save you a little extra time because it autofills both. And of course I can use this same load lots feature of listing all my inventory and using the grid as a means to do the transfer. That's transaction entry, doing transfers. And then let's see, so that's receiving and transfers. I think we did pretty good on that, and where we did where the put away information comes in. So we're about to get into sales order. There's a few things to talk about. Are there any questions on where we've been so far?
I think so far I've been able to answer all of the questions.
Okay, and there you go. So we're going to get into sales order, so let's put on our hats and let's get ready for this. So a few things to know and a few things to talk about. I didn't run the transaction register, when I entered the transaction, but if I had, there's also the audit trail in there, and there's a sub-report in there also. I mentioned that because you might want to change that too, and it's just a crystal report. Okay, talking about sales order and the features and the directed picking and all of this. So there's a couple ways of using the system. First way is let's say that your needs might be that you want to get your sales orders in, print a pick sheet which reflects the inventory and you do picking from. Okay, that's good. Then the other way would be after order comes in, you want to print a pick sheet where it provides advisement where to store goods. We call that directed picking, and I'm going to show you the options for that. Then there's the other features where you can manually reserve inventory in sales order, and the way we treat that is just like directed picking. The inventory is reserved to the sales order, whether it be for just one day because you're picking it today or tomorrow, or for 30 days because you're waiting on other goods. It's reserved in the same fashion, and in the sales order, you always have the ability to override that information. So whatever is reserved for the sales order will automatically flow through to the invoice or to shipping data entry. So there's no double keying anything, ever. Also, anything that's reserved on the sales order has special attention on the pick sheet as you print the pick sheet. When we print it, we always push it to the front. Even if you're printing available inventory on the sales order, which I'll show you how that's done, we push it to the front because we give extra attention to that. Also on the handhelds, there's special attention to those allocated. It validates it and makes sure you're picking it from the right location, or you're picking the right lot that was reserved, or whether on the handheld it will walk you through the warehouse, the directed picking, in, let's say, bin location order. It doesn't have to be bin location, but it's directed picking in a wave picking fashion, let's say. So, so then multi-bin options, let's talk about the directed picking options. So we provide this tab called directed picking, and this gives you the ability to designate how you want things to go. Pull goods out of the primary bin locations. If you don't have primary bin locations, no big deal. Then you designate here the way you want to do things. If you only have primary bin locations, we provide these none options. If you want to print pick sheets and always grab goods out of the primary pick locations and then go ahead and exceed quantity available and go that fashion, you can do that. And that's what this option does. And then you can rotate, and then you can do transfers of inventory later into the primary pick location, because this is going to reserve inventory, and then of course, you know, you could ship it. So we have that same none option over here for on the lot serial side. These are for lot serial items. But typically, businesses want to pick goods by lot serial number, or maybe the oldest one first by the lot receipt date. Or if you have our add-on for expiration date, vendor lot traceability, you can do it by when goods are expired. So the first expired, first out. FIFO, fee-fi-fo form. Okay. And then over here for non-lot serial, some of the options are next bin location, the least quantity on hand. That will naturally consolidate inventory, and then, or the last received date. That's a good way of shipping the oldest one first. If you don't have lot serial, this is a great feature. And then this is looking at our pick area. This is looking at other areas in my warehouse. I can have floor and other, and those just could be any other locations. You remember that's where I designate the location types. I can have it look at my overflow area or not. Maybe I don't want my pickers to go into the overflow area. Maybe that's just for rotating inventory in there, and I can uncheck that. Note over here on the right-hand side, I could designate the priority, relative priority in different areas of my warehouse. And then this is for staging locations, especially like receiving, quality control. And I can use this option just to say, no, I'm not going to automatically select goods out of there. Or maybe you do, and maybe goods have been received in, and you got a sales order that's going out the door, and that's important to you. And that could be the first or fifth and last priority, and maybe that's the way you want things to be run. And that's fine. This is the jump option for overflow. I talked about that earlier. You know, you can designate the quantity in the item. When you have a large order, you could do that for a certain sales unit of measure. Let's say it was a case pack or pallet of goods. You could. These are the standard codes. Now, all of these options you can override in product line maintenance, because maybe a certain product line you want one way or another. And of course, you remember you can do that in item code maintenance too, because you might want a different option for a different item. You can even turn it off by item or by product line. Over here on the right-hand side, allocate kits for ship complete. This would say when all the inventory must be present and allocable in order for a kit to ship. And that's what this allocate ship complete option does. And then these other two options that are grayed out, best case pack. If you have license plate, it'll grab the best case pack regardless where it's at. So and you can use that to say you're selling you designate in the sales order to sell a case. And so this option over here, allocate higher level case ID, there's a setting in the system to designate what like a case pack, master pack, and pallet are, and it will automatically grab those for you. Or include all areas for best case pack ID. So no matter what quantity or what ID type or unit measure type you select in the sales order, it'll grab the best case pack or pallet by the combination quantity and what you have in your inventory. Selling 1,005 units, maybe it turns out to be X number of pallets and case packs and individual units, and it will do that work for you. So then these are my options: directed picking, and of course in product line maintenance I can override it, and item maintenance I can override it there too. I just want to show you how that works here real quick. Override directed picking settings for this product line, and so if that's checked on, these options that are in here will supersede for these items over in here. I'll turn that off, and actually. Oh, and if this is on, I can turn off directed picking entirely for a certain product line. Why would I do that? Maybe there's certain items that I don't want the system to automatically allocate for certain reasons. These are override settings for a given, for put away, directed put away, and that's what that's here for. So I'll come back to some of the other directed put away options in there in a little bit. So how do I do this? I can do directed picking. Let's see, in here, this sales order, we provide this column right here to represent what's been already allocated to the sales order, I can click on this box. I can change this information. In this case, what I'll do is I'm going to go to the header. I'm going to hit the Clear Sales Orders, and it will go ahead and clear all the information. And what I'm going to do here, too, is I think I have an automatic option on here. And let me change this. Let me make sure. Oh, yeah, I do. And I want to turn this option off. I have the option on to automatically allocate inventory as they're entered, and I don't want to do that. I want to only allocate goods as I'm printing pick sheets, so I'm just going to have this option on. And by default, when you turn on the system first off, it is in this option where it's allocating inventory. It's either directed picking or manually with this option on here. So I'm going to come back into that sales order now and double check my inventory is cleared out, and it is. And what I did earlier is I clicked this hyperlink here, and that's only enabled if there is inventory allocated on the sales order, and I quickly cleared out the inventory. So now as I print a pick sheet, there's two templates that we can talk about here that we provide along with the system. One is called rows, and the other one's called across. We document it thoroughly in our manual too. The across one is used to print available inventory on your pick sheet, and the rows option is used to print allocated inventory on a wave pick sheet. So that's the one I'm going to use right now, and that's defaulted, and the right options are set down here for that. And so what it's going to do here now is it's going to go through and it's going to automatically allocate the inventory from the bin locations using the settings I have. So in my settings, I had it pulling inventory out of the primary bin locations first, and then go through my other bin locations thereafter. Look, I have a fictitious bin location over here, and so on. But now it reserved the inventory for the sales orders for me as it printed the pick sheet, and now this pick sheet is my wave pick sheet, so I use the rows option, and it's now in bin location order, and so it's a nice organized way to go picking through my warehouse. Let me show you how all this was done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into options over here. And we're going to talk about pick sheets now. So here, first of all, when I went to go print, I'm going to come back in here. I'll pull this back up. So first of all, when I went to print, let me try that again. It messed up the screen there. One more time. Okay, so these are the company-wide options here on the right, and this is my printing screen over here on the left. And if I was printing from the menu, these same options are over here. Oh, I messed up that screen, didn't I? Okay, so looking back at options, when you first turn on the system, this option is turned on. This allows picking sheet automatic allocations here. That makes it so that nothing automatic is happening for you. And so by default, it wants to just print the available inventory on your pick sheet if that's where if you select that pick sheet template. So in order to do the automatic allocations, I need to turn it on. So here I defaulted it to turn this option on here to auto allocate, and this option says go ahead and print only allocated inventory on the pick sheet. That means I'm only going to print what's reserved for the sales order on the pick sheet and not print my available inventory. These are only defaults, and then as I go printing, they default these options here, and of course I can change them on the fly. So I auto allocate inventory, that's defaulted for me. This is the print only allocations, not the available inventory. And this option here, sort allocation standard form, I'm going to come back over here, but that's this option here for wave pick sheet. So we have the ability to print a wave pick sheet on the regular pick sheet of MS-90 and a supplemental one if you're printing a group of sales orders to have one consolidated pick sheet. So maybe you have one pick sheet to go picking for individual order, but let's say you wanted another pick sheet to say, oh, I just printed 10 orders. Let's go pick that inventory for these 10 orders. And that's the supplemental wave pick sheet. If I didn't want the wave pick sheet, I could have said no, and by default in the system, that's the way it is. Or I could just say yes. And by selecting the standard form, this option here, that says I want to print a wave pick sheet on my regular Mass 90 pick sheet. And this one says standard, so it means I'm going to print a wave pick sheet on the regular Mass 90 pick sheet and the supplemental wave pick sheet for a group of orders. I know that's a mouthful, and we document it well and always ask us questions. We always try there to help. Okay, so back here, what I'm doing here, since I had the standard option on, this sort allocation standard form is on. And what that says is, hey, when I'm printing the pick sheets, to look at my allocations that are reserved for the sales order and print it and sort it in that order, in bin location order. And let me go back to options over here. I could have done it in a user-defined field in my bin location, and I didn't have to do it in bin location. So like, let's say if you had some locations with heavier goods and you wanted those on the bottom of the pallet, you can use the sort code in order to have those bin locations come up first in the sort, and so it could help on the packing of your pallets. So that said, coming back over here to the form, I selected that rows form template, and this is that example of that template, of course, here as I repeated. So if in this case, when I'm exiting out, now it's asking me, do I want to print a wave pick sheet? The wave pick sheet allows me to print a group of orders. In this case, it's just one order. Had I selected from picking sheet printing, of course, I can print a wave pick sheet for that. So one more thing to talk about here is the regular pick sheet. Let's say you're not allocating inventory, or let's say you don't want this form and you want to print the available inventory on your pick sheet. And that's where I can select the other template that I have in here, and we call that the across one here. And let's see here. I can go ahead and leave the option to auto-allocate. You could choose not to. I have some inventory allocated, so it's neither here or there. I could have cleared it. And then by default, it turned off this option to sort by the allocations. I'm printing my available inventory. I'm not relying on the allocations to drive the sort order on the pick sheet. And in this case, I'm just going to print my available inventory on the pick sheet. Now what it does is, if you recall, we moved the allocated information to the far left. So if I had nothing allocated on the pick sheet, it wouldn't have done that, of course. And this is a sub-report. So if you don't want to print status, or if you don't have lot serial, of course you can take all those out. And I'll show you how to manipulate that in a second. And then since it's moving all the allocated information in the front, we have this field. It's called the status field, and it's telling you a little bit about the location because, hey, this is a primary bin location. This is allocated. And this is a signal to the picker saying, hey, even though I'm printing the available inventory on this pick sheet, you got to really go pick this first because it's allocated. This is in the Crystal form, so if you don't like the verbiage, you can change it or what have you. And so it's, of course, printing information left to right. If you had our expiration date vendor lot traceability add-on, it would print the expiration date and the vendor lot number on here too, if you so choose. You can see in my lot valued item, I have the allocated information and then my available inventory going left to right here. So that's all that discussion. Let me pull up let me do this print pick sheet one more time, and I'll go into Designer and to show you what we've done. So you might have your own form, and you might want to move it over into your own form, move our sub-report into your own form, and so you can copy it out of Crystal, copy our sub-report out of Crystal, and then insert it into yours. And everything in Crystal seems to slow down when you go to webinar, go to meeting going, and it's working on it. We'll probably have antivirus running in here, and so it's taken forever to get there. We could have gone get some coffee, another donut, and it's still working, and there you go. Maybe it's trying to look for that printer that's set up in here or something. Okay, so I just want to move this aside. There's two sub-reports in here, and I'll double-click on the bottom. Or yeah, the bottom one is the one that we have in here, because I could tell, because it's the same fields that I was printing a second ago. Obviously, if I want to delete a row or take out certain things, I can. And then this other one, I just show you what it looks like. This one has our add-on for expiration date, vendor lot traceability, and that, of course, has the added fields for those too. So the system knows what you have, and it will use the appropriate sub-report. That's all we do for our templates that we provide in the system. Of course, we had a special column for quantity allocated because we're using that information if you use our template. But if you want to use your own template, once again, you can do a right-click and do a save as, and then use the crystal insert feature to bring it in. When you reinsert it, you got to change the sub-report links, and the sub-report link is using the sort field. And of course, you probably know Crystal better than I do, and you can do all that. I just won't save those changes there. Okay, so that's the discussion on that. The nice thing when inventory is allocated, once again, it's on the pick sheet. It tells the picker, if you could thoroughly tell that we're telling the picker to what go pick. But the other benefit is we bring it through to shipping data entry and invoice data entry. There's no double keying anything. And so when I bring this across, I think this is order 198. And here, look, it swooped it right across. It brought in my defaulted the quantity shipped and defaulted the inventory that it came out of. Look what it did for my lot serial goods. It defaulted the lot number and the bin location and all that. If the picker did not pick that lot and you allowed them to pick a different location or a different lot number, pardon me, then you can, of course, change it right here, and it's all good, and you're done. It could be that fast for you too. So there's a lot of nice features about using our directed picking for your lot valued items, or when you got the multi-bin going, the inventory different bin locations, because you don't have to key in the bin locations in the invoicing side and the shipping side. It saves a lot of time. Just like if you had the RF handheld. So if I had the RF handhelds in this whole transaction, I printed the pick sheet, the picker knows what to go pick, showed you all that. When the picker picks the goods, it can validate it was allocated, or if you just printed the available inventory on the pick sheet, they can go after that. They scan it, brings the information right into shipping or invoice data entry as you choose. Then the other way of doing this is what we call pick and pack, and that's where you scan the goods. It moves the inventory out of the location that you scan it from and puts it into a staging location like shipping or staging or whatever you like it, and now it's out of that location you picked it from, and now it's in that staging location waiting to be shipped. And then all it takes to ship that order is just keying in that sales order, either here in shipping or invoice data entry, or you can scan the sales order number on the handheld itself. Okay, that's my overview on directed picking and the pick sheets and all that. Are there any questions?
There is one question that I wasn't able to answer.
Yes, ma'am.
In the special condition of specifically sales orders that are on hold, if you have directed picking turned on and you're allowing the picking sheets to pre-allocate your inventory, what happens with orders that are on hold? Do those also get allocated, or do we have special programming to not do that?
Got it. Good question. There's a couple ways of doing it. Obviously, if you're in sales order entry and you're doing a quick print, I think the whole thing does not stop the world, and it will print the sales order in sales order entry. I remember a while ago for a customer, we did do something special so that everything stopped. I mean, if an order's on hold, you can't do a credit card transaction. You know, you could do, you know, there's a will, there's a way. But in picking sheet printing, let's say you're printing pick sheets this way, as a lot of people do, you could choose to exclude orders on hold. Where's that option here? Orders, let's see. Catch you in unauthorized, expired, no. But you can exclude on hold orders. Did I get that wrong? I thought you can exclude on hold orders in, oh, right here, print, oh, there, right in front of me. I'm blind. It had to be right in front. So if I selected this and I and when I'm doing a selection of sales orders and it was on hold, it will not include it in the batch. And so naturally, it's not printing the pick sheet at that time, and it's not, and since you're not printing the pick sheet, it's not allocating it. We do have what's called our wave batch. I'm conducting, I think, is the class for add-ons next week, Brandy, or is it the week following?
I think it's on the 23rd.
Okay, on the 23rd, I'm covering our add-ons, which includes this wave batch picking and shipping control. But in here, too, we give you the ability to exclude orders on hold right here. Right, we have that feature also. In addition, when you're selecting, go ahead.
Sorry, just to make a correction, that is on Wednesday the 21st, not the 23rd. I apologize.
Wednesday the 21st. There we go. Hate for us to show up on the wrong day. That would be terrible. Okay. So in here, when you're selecting sales orders, the wave batch picking, I'll just give an overview of what this does, is it allows you to select orders automatically. You don't have to know what orders you want to ship. The system evaluates your best orders to ship. You can, in the order, you can designate it as ship complete, or you can put it on hold so you don't want to grab it, just like you're talking about. And you can, you could designate a fill rate, a normal fill rate, and the ship date you want to fill it. You want to fill orders to. Maybe you don't want to fill orders up to today's date. It has today's date as the 24th of April. So if I wanted to fill all my orders for the 24th, I can do that. Or if it's later in the day, I receive some inventory earlier, I can have this null. And then I can go selecting all, and it will go looking at all my orders that meet this fill rate of 30 to 100% and not on hold, and it will present it on here. Let me see if I got everything allocated. Oh, I must have everything allocated in here. So, oh, by the way, when I did that selection a second ago, here like this, I can print a log, and it will show me why it didn't select orders. So here it didn't meet fill. Note the order 111 did not meet my fill rate. It only had 25% fill rate. It's telling me why, because on this one item here, note order 116, it didn't select that because that one's on hold. This one's invoicing in progress. This one's on these ones are on other batches, and so on and so forth. It tells me, and we keep a record of the log associated here forever, and so you could do diagnostics on it and how well you're filling orders and so on. But anyway, this is all part of the wave batch shipping. If you're interested in attending, we'll talk about that. License plate, where you can do case packs and pallets, and expiration dates with vendor lot traceability. We can trace your raw materials through finished goods and so on. And go back to where we were on sales. Any other questions? Great question on the hold.
There is one more. So if an order, if a client orders 10 of an item and there are 0 open, available in inventory, will that line still show on a pick list?
Good question. It depends on which one you're utilizing. First of all, if I had my wave batch add-on, there's an option whether or not you want to print that on there, whatever on that. And then if you're printing the wave batch, if you saw the wave pick sheet with the rows option, we have it by default to go ahead and print those items that are not shipping on the pick sheet. And what you can do is, since that pick sheet is looking at what the quantity allocated is you could do a suppress on the line in crystal to say, look, if the quantity allocated is 0, and to suppress that line, and so that won't print that line for you on the pick sheet. Any other questions, or is that good?
I think we're okay now.
We're okay? Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so that's our discussion on sales orders. All along, hit the wrong button there. So all along, while I was allocating inventory and on that one order and invoicing it, we're keeping track of all that activity here in our detail history. In fact, I think the one I was shipping here a second ago, yeah, that's today's date here. We're the 14th. No, let's take a look at the audit trail here that I went through. Remember, I was selecting that one sales order, and here, note the sales order number, that was 198. And notice what we're doing here. We're keeping track of all that activity. I'm user Ron. You can see Ron all over the place here. And I cleared the allocations on the sales order, and then I reallocated it. And it's keeping track of what all the things I did. So you know what's been allocated, how it was done. I auto-allocated on the picking sheet printing. That's a little obvious. And then I invoiced it. You can see how I invoiced. So I cleared it, I allocated it, and then I invoiced it. And this is the invoice number that the sales order is on. So that means it's pending now an invoice data entry. If someone overrides that and overrides the bin location in invoice data entry, then when it updates, the inventory will reflect that. And so now you have a full audit trail of not just your inventory movements and transactions, you have it for these allocations too. You can see it here includes sales order allocations activity. I could choose not to do that. And that was all allocations going there here. This is regular inventory movement here. It's just a lot of inventory movements, transfers, holds, and release. Note how we're keeping track of things that even went back a long time ago there. So that's a little bit on the detailed history of things that I was just doing there. The other part about it is allocated. You know where your inventory is allocated at, and I have orders that are now in invoicing, and you can clearly see that it's allocated out of there. If I had the pick and pack, or if I was using my wave batch picking, and I could have moved the goods out of the source location that I picked it from, put it into the shipping dock, and then invoiced it out of the shipping dock. By the way, one note to talk about on Starship and the other shipping software. We work really well with those too. They tend to work right off of shipping data entry. And then we have a special thing with Starship and their business object interface version where you can print multiple sales orders on a bill lading and those features, and we work really well with that. And so if you have lot valued items and you need shipping software, I can recommend the Starship software because you can print bill of ladings with the lot numbers automatically without any double keying, and because they read this information right into their system. Okay, so we talked about a lot of the basic features that businesses tend to worry about out front. Let me just regress a little bit and talk about directed put away. So directed put away works like this. We start at company-wide options here, and you have the options here where you like to normally put your goods. Maybe you want to receive goods into the overflow area first or into your regular pick area first. It looks at where you last received it. And there's other sensitive options here. Maybe put it into the primary bin locations only if you have no stock. But if that option's on, if this is off, then it will nudge inventory towards your primary bin locations. And then there's other options of like if you like the idea of putting goods into nearby locations where you last received it, but you don't want to put it in the same location because you're trying to do a good job tracking the last receipt date, then option something like this would be good. Only put in primary if there's no inventory. Disallow put to a location where the same item exists, and except for primary bin locations. And now the system by default will get goods into a location nearby where I last received it. Then what we do is we look at the settings by a product line, and in the given product line, and then in by item too, and then of course you can override those same settings here, but then you can designate the default zones or regions where the goods are supposed to go to and default aisles that the goods are supposed to go to. And then we look at the capacity of the locations, and then in here I could designate the number of units that fit in the location, or the item times the volume field and inventory maintenance to compute the capacity. And of course, if I had license plate, if I said I can put other factors like the case packs. There, over here we have a couple other options. Let's say you just want to stop putting goods away into a location. That's an override. You saw earlier how I automatically put goods on hold when they landed in there. Disallow mix of goods in this location. Let's say you just want one item to land in this location, so it's like the last one wins, or first one wins, put it right. So with this option on, it says if there's inventory of an item in there, the system knows that it won't mix inventory into that location. Then that gives you the ability to print a put-away report. You can print a put-away report looking at the receiving staging location, which I did earlier. That's because this is on. And then you can do this for goods that you produced, for bill of materials and work order. And then we even provide an audit trail of how the system computed that with this. I don't have bill of materials in this ABC company. So here I'll select this one more time, add the detail option on, and here it's telling me how it designated. It's putting a B30U because in the product line or item I designated to put it in the primary, in the aisle, in the primary aisle. Here is the primary aisle. I shouldn't say the word primary, in the aisle location, aisle area, regional area, so on, empty location in preferred area, and these are diagnosed. Ship back orders because I have a back order of 10, and so it's recommending putting it in the shipping dock, putting 20 into this other location back in the stock, so I'm shipping some back orders. And then, and so you could designate a sales order in your receipt of goods, like in your purchase order, and then it comes through receipt of goods, and it will pick up on locations that you have for a sales order or designated for your customer. So that's enough discussions on that. So what we did not talk about yet is physical count, and that won't take very long. And then we can open it up to bill of materials and work order. So let's pause for 1 second. Are there any questions on where we left off here on put away? And we'll get into physical count real quick, and then manufacturing.
I think so far we're okay.
So far so good. Okay, test tomorrow. Got to study. Okay. Very, very easy, actually, and hopefully you view it that it's logical. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear what I have out there now from my last presentation. I'll come in here to do a sort by bin location. I'll do a print and freeze, and on here I'll print my quantity on hand in the location, and then this applies to the freeze, and so it's going to freeze the quantity on hand in the bin location in physical count for me. Down here below, I can designate a range of bin locations, which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to select a handful of A locations. I didn't have to. I could have selected all my locations down here by selecting the A region like that, and that will select all of those. So I can select zones in my warehouse. I can select inventory by when it was last counted. I can do it when it was last counted out of a location, or when the item's been less counted entirely. So in this case, this one says multi-bin location date last counted. The other one's the whole item hasn't been counted since a certain date. And so I can go something like this and say, give me all inventory that hasn't been counted since 3/31/14. So I'm sorting this by bin location, and I was printing this as a reminder for everything from A10L to A20U. And this is our little feature here. Even though people are in the system, we're still giving you the ability to do the freeze and print. And then it comes over here, and it's doing those A bin locations, and I printed this in location order. I printed the quantity on hand, which is probably not normal, but then I can use this to do my count. And then in physical count data entry, I can come in here and do my data entry. I can sort this in item location, item order, or it could be sensitive to this. In this case, it's in bin location order right down here, and I can key in my quantities. In this case, I'm going to do some zeros just to override. I have a lot of inventory allocated. over into invoicing and sales order, and I just wanted to show you one example. So I could do my keying. I could have done an import of my physical counts, which I'll show you right now. In fact, I'm going to hit accept there, and if I were to come back into physical count and do an import here, in regular Mass 90, when you import physical counts, you select the IM_physical. This is the IM404 physical, same name, just the 404 is our master developer code. And then here I could put in, actually I don't want bin locations, I want lot serial, I want the bin location, and I want to enter the quantity counted. And it's that simple. So by importing these, by doing a freeze and then importing just like this, I've been able to import a multi-bin physical count. And it's that simple. I'll go ahead and save that. So back into physical count, if you recall, I did a freeze and I zeroed out a bunch of inventory. What I want to do here is show you the variance register. I want to talk about this option, check quantity allocated. What the check quantity allocated does is it validates, it makes sure that you don't do something a little stupid by exceeding quantity available for inventory that you have allocated in the sales order or for what you have in invoice data entry. And in this case, I'm about to go short, and notice here, in terms of presentation, we do give you a variance by bin location here on the report. And here we're stopping you from doing the update because it's warning you that you have, you're going to take your inventory on hand negative because it sees that you have inventory reserved on sales orders, and it has this inventory in invoicing. And so if you take it down to 0, you're going to get negative quantity available just like that. And so it's a warning mechanism. So what happens if you get that message, two actions are, one is you can go fix it, because normally it means, from our experience having this feature, it means that you have something in invoicing and somebody just didn't count it. And so it saved the quantity on hand on a couple customers because they had because we had this feature. If you say, you know, we know what we're doing, we want to update it, you can uncheck it and hit proceed, and then it won't stop you, and you can go ahead and update it, and you go like that. The other features here in count card data entry is the automatic explosion. If you're familiar with lot valued items, where you can do, after you select the lot value, you know, it gives you the ability to include all lots. Well, for multi-bin, we give you a feature to include all locations. And so this will reflect all the locations where my inventory is, and I can do account card data entry. Of course, if you know the features of here, you can change this at will, and then you can do your account card data entry and go forward from there. So we're going to get into manufacturing. We're going to talk about bill of materials and work order. One more thing I didn't talk about is the manual. The manual goes with everything. We update it regularly. We stay up on features. We update this. We always include new features. We're up to date with all versions, 5.1. This one's dated 4/21/14. I think that's the latest. I'm pretty sure. So everything I showed you today is in here one way or another. We have examples of most everything one way or another. In the appendix, we talk about some of the common imports. The UDS, creation of UDS. I didn't talk about that, but what happens with UDS is if you follow the way we do it, we give a UDF file, and you put your UDF, your own fields in there, and then we have special things in every business object in Mass 90 and in the screens, and it will display it and auto-display. It will auto-display things for you and keep an audit trail automatically for you for that information. You don't have to assign business objects to data and so on. We do a lot of the work for you built in if you do it the way we prescribed here in the manual. We do that in a couple places here in for regular sales order, page 31. We talk about that. And then if you have our add-on for expiration date vendor lot traceability, there's the supplemental one in here for that, because we keep track of this information forever, and for lot valued goods with this add-on. So then there's discussions here on the different pick sheets, the different templates that I talked about, the rows and the printing the inventory one. Walks you through on the different features for quantity on hand and inventory. Oops. Go in here to page 19. So for example, it might be a little busy, but we're trying to give you a good point of view and then a little description of things. And we talked about this, of course, today. This is on locations, drill downs, and the quick transfers and features like that. Hard to remember everything. So there you go. The manual is downloadable off the website. We ship a link to it with the software. And of course, if you look under the ACS group directory under the main menu, under the Mass 90 folder, we always drop the last version that we did with the software there. We do update it often, maybe every 3-4 months, so you're welcome to download it from the website and so on. Okay, so the next discussion is bill of materials and work order. Before we go into that, there may be some users that want to drop off, and this is a good point. That was our discussion on distribution. And so what we're going to do is get into multi-bid and warehouse management for bill of materials and work order. So if you have to leave, we understand, and we appreciate you coming. And so we'll pause here for a couple seconds. We can see if there's any questions, too, while we're waiting here, just to get those that want to jump off at this point. I'll switch over to XYZ Company over here. Get ready to show you a couple things here. Okay, what do you think, Brandy? Are we good to go?
I think we're good on questions.
Good on questions. Okay. So hopefully the donuts are good. Coffee good, not stale. Enough creamer. Okay. A couple things to talk about. One is staging locations. Just to remember or remind ourselves about that, because we have some features tied to the staging locations. In my XYZ data, you can see I have staging locations for both my finished goods and raw materials. In this case, I call them WIP and raw and finished goods. So in options, I can auto-assign those locations. So in here in finished goods, I could say go ahead and put in the staging location. Or of course you can auto-assign the primary bin location. So in production entry, you'll see that's where in bill of materials production entry that it will default that location. Then on the raw material side, it will default the goods coming out of that staging location if you so decide, or out of the primary bin location in my case. By the way, I mentioned bill of materials. In work order, it's on completions for finished goods. And then for goods coming out of inventory for raw materials, it's for material issues, of course. So the way this works is, in bill of materials production entry, when I go with, and maybe I need to show here too at the same time, but in bill of materials production entry, you have the header screen and lines. After I complete the header portion of the screen, then when I switch over the line, then it will allocate inventory automatically for me if I have it. If I say no prompt, no auto assign, of course it will not auto anything. Then in work order, the way this works is it will auto assign inventory for me if I do one or two things, the auto issue or the back flush. If I do those, I can have inventory automatically coming out of the bin location for me. Saves a lot of time, especially for businesses that are not used to doing lot serial goods. You might really appreciate it. And if you have primary bin locations for your items, they can automatically take it out of the primary bin location. I can do this. I can auto assign out of the primary bin locations. And note here we have an option to take it out of the bin location and allow it to go negative. So for a non-lot serial item, it can really always take it out of a primary bin location. I could have had a staging location too. That would have been valid too. That's fine. So, if you have non-lot serial goods, our automatic features for raw materials could save a lot of time for staging if you have a staging location for your goods or the primary bin location. Staging location would, of course, what you could have done is pick the goods, put in staging location, the system could have automatically taken out of there. If you don't automatic anything, then you have to select the locations one at a time in the system. And businesses that do lot serial are very accustomed to that. Businesses that don't are not, and they look for features like these automatic things to save a lot of time. So these are the general options then for manufacturing. They can be overridden. So like here I had the warehouse staging location on finished goods. I could have created a UDF field in the bill in bill of materials, and it would put it into that location. Or I could have put it in my work order, and it would put it into that location. So if you want to be sensitive to certain, if you want the bill or the work order to be going to a certain location, you can do that. Okay, and we discussed that in UDF fields in the back of the manual on how to assigning UDF fields to the bill of materials and work order. So an example of a production entry then would be like this. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do a production entry. I'll select, this is a lot valued item, of course, here. And we have our expiration date, vendor lot traceability, and it's defaulting probably like 90 days out here for this, when the goods expire. But so these are the finished goods location. So it's defaulted my WIP location because I put that option in there, and that's my staging location. And this is the lot number. So over here are overrides for the raw materials. So if I wanted the raw materials to come out of a certain location, not let's say a staging location or a primary bin location, but let's say this is like a workshop, and I had this production entry coming out of a certain location, I can designate that location here. If not, I just leave it blank, as most of the time you will. And in this case, I had the automatic option set. I know that because there's nothing on the left-hand side to show that it needs to be distributed. The battery is, I think, a standard costed or average costed item. Pulled it out of my staging location. Here, dough is lot serial, and that pulled the dough by, I think, the first expired first out, maybe, or maybe it was by lot number of however I got it. And then I have flour too, which is also there too. So if I didn't do that, I would, if I didn't have the automatic option on, of course, I would be expected to enter the quantity that out of each bin location. So there are the advantages of using automatic where you can. So now what I just did here can be printed. So in options, we give you the ability to print the allocations on a pick sheet or not. So if that's on the pick sheet side over enable print allocations on bill of materials and work order. And what that means is now for bill of materials, if I can find bill of materials, as I print the pick sheet, I can designate the transaction number, the production number, and I think that's probably this one right here. And as I print it, and since the production number has been designated in there, what it's going to do is going to print everything that's been reserved just for this production entry. If I had many production entries, it would print all that allocated information. And the way you work with this is, if I don't select a production number, then the system will automatically just print the available inventory, which tends to be the norm on a pick sheet, to print the available inventory on the pick sheet, as you can see here. And in this case, it's given advice on where the picker can go pick the inventory. So what we've done here with the option to select the production number here in Bill of Materials, it gives you the ability to print, to allocate ahead of time and then print that information on the pick sheet and instruct the picker what to pick. But the norm tends to be not, and production entry tends to be after the fact. And so where you can print your pick sheet, print your available inventory on the pick sheet, picker picks it, then you produce your goods, and then production entry, you select that inventory out of those locations. Or you can utilize the automatic features to the extent that you can. So that's Bill of Materials. The same applies in work order, where you can print the available or the allocated information on a pick sheet. If I was going to pick and sheet printing, here print multi-bin allocations, yes, no, and then as I select the work order, it will print the allocation information that's in material issues. So what I can do, pardon me, I'm just checking what I had down at the bottom there. So what I can do is I can do an example of an automatic issue, automatic allocation for a backflush. So what I'll do is I'll do a completion. I'll select my work order. Pizza, like making pizza, love eating pizza, and that 0 is not a good bin location there. And so here I'm completing 10 units of pizza. This lot number, the default and expire date, which appears to be about a year out. And as I hit OK, it's going to go ahead. It's going to automatically create my material issue into another transaction number. As you can see, it auto-allocated it, 3 lines completely allocated over there. This is my completion over here. If I were to switch over to the other screen where it did the material issue, here it is. And here are the lines. There are 2 lines here that have no quantity in them, but there are 3 that do. You can see the Y, they're fully distributed. And these are even lot valued. I think they're all lot valued items. And they're auto-allocated based on the settings that I had on the system. But of course, if I had non-lot items, that could have been useful too, and they have those automatically come through. That feature worked because the automatic option was on. So coming back to options, since if I had auto assign or auto warehouse staging locations, that's a signal in the system to automatically automatically allocate the inventory on the material issues, on those completions or the auto issues. If I don't want that, I can turn on no prompt, no auto assign. Or the prompt also works. The reason we have a prompt here is there's a button on the material issue. So on the auto-generated material issue, you can go in there, you can distribute as you wish, and there's a button to automatically go through the rest of the lines in the material issue. Excuse me. So sort of a mouthful there, but that's pretty much the discussion on bill of materials and work order. We integrate well with our manufacturing automation series of add-ons for Mass 90, and that gives you the ability to do scheduling, make to order, and all those other features that we do. We also work well with the work order scan product, where you can do completions, you can do material issues, labor transactions with the RF handheld, and all that information comes in through the system. So that's my discussion on bill of materials for work order. Are there any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. So this question came in a little earlier in the webinar. When you're dealing with bill of materials productions, is there a way to see pending goods inside of the bin location that they're going to be in once they're actually completed?
I'm going to say yes. I think I know why the question came up, because Mass 90 does a poor job on tracking what's reserved for inventory, and tell me if I didn't answer this properly. But note here, we know that what's been allocated in a production entry, where Mass 90 does not. It doesn't commit inventory in bill of materials. And so we know what my actual quantity on hand, what's allocated, and here that's hard allocated. I can drill down to it. You can see I have a lot in my XYZ company. I have some on bill of material production entries. I have some here in material issues. I use this battery quite a bit. So if you're looking for the system to reserve your inventory for bill of materials, which Mass 90 doesn't do out of the box, which we do, yes. If that doesn't answer your question, please let me know.
I believe that was your question, Holly, so if you need anything more on that, just let me know. Another question, which I believe I've answered, but I want to double check. Is there an option to have the bill item's expiration date appear on the production entry register?
A good question. I'm wondering if we don't do that. I guess we don't do that already. If we don't do that already, let's see here. Remind myself here. So that would be probably on the finished good. Yeah, on the raw materials, most definitely we're reflecting that already. So maybe that's on finished good. If that's on finished good, good question, and I could see that we don't do that on finished goods side, and we can definitely work something out for that. I'll put that in further where we could do something. I mean, yes, you can manually do that. You can manually go in here and assign that in the Crystal report, and because let me see, that information is out there by the production number, and you can link your production entry to I'll spit it out, to the register in Crystal reports. We can put it in the work file, and which looks like a good thing to do, and I can put that in for something that we could do automatically, and looks like we should be doing that anyway. So the way you do that, if you wanted to manually do that, is let's see here. There is a file that goes BM404_production, which has this information. So here's production number 375, and if in Crystal you were to link, and that's a busy register. I remember that register in Crystal. There's a lot of information in there. Come in here, and our files always have the 404 on it, but I think it's called production. It's going to be one of these two, production or production header. No, it's not going to be production header, is it? Production. And there's the expiration date that was selected in the bill. You know that there's a UDF field that you can put in the bill that will automatically calculate the expiration date for you, and then as you get into input and production entry, you can override it, just FYI. But then, this is in here, and in the Crystal report in the register, you can link to that. If you don't want to wait for us, which I totally understand, and you could do that. Good question. Thanks for bringing that up. Now I have it notated to work on. That should be a feature we add to the system.
Going back to that previous question, they're actually looking for the ability for the pending finished good, the one that hasn't actually been produced yet, to be available for sales and allocation through sales order. So we're talking about the finished good kind of being pre-available before it's actually been produced through the system.
Pre-available in sales order, and then to actually select those goods in sales order. And that, with our license plate product, we do one step right below that, where it gives you the ability to actually move the inventory before you fully produce the goods. So, so this system will reflect the quantity available, increase the quantity available in certain places, like in the license plate, on a pallet tag report, in a bin location. It will show that the available inventory for what's pending in the production entry to be produced, but you still can't select it in invoicing yet until it's actually produced. And I'll just step back. Without license plate, there is no way of selecting inventory any better for what's pending in bill of materials production entry. You can't select it in invoicing or sales order, if that's what the question is. And I'm sorry, I don't think that's something that that's sort of interested why, if that's what you want to do, to select the invoicing. Not unless production entry is so slow that you can't get it into invoicing ahead of time, which, you know, seen that before.
All right, and then it looks like we have one more question. Holly, definitely let me know if we need to kind of explore that a little bit further. And then the last question, I think this is really more of a stage 100 question. Unfortunately, it's a little outside of my knowledge base. What's the difference of issuing through production entry versus work order?
Well, work order will do added things. Production entry tends to be, there's no work in process in bill of materials. Once you produce goods, that's it. Goods come out of one place. All the raw materials, so I'm production entry. I have these raw materials, and they'll be all assembled into this item called A lot with, this lot number. So the quantity on hand on this inventory will go away, and I'm going to have, in this case, quantity 1 of this item, and the cost will roll up and all that business. With with work order, it's more of a work in process that you can track, and where you can increase your costs for labor too, so along with the materials. And so I can track work in process for subcomponents towards my finished goods, and have work in process reflected in the system as I go. And that would be one main difference.
All right, unless anybody wants to raise their hand real quick, I think we have worked through all of the questions.
All right. Test tomorrow. Donuts were good. Coffee was okay. We really appreciate you coming today. Email us. Let us know if you need anything. Keep in mind the 21st if you want to learn more about wave batch picking, ship control, expiration date vendor lot traceability, license plate pallet management, case pack, and all that good stuff. And then if we were too fast, you can review the manual. The video, I'm sure, is available too, and definitely let us know, and we might put it on the website, maybe. And then if you just want to hear my voice again, and you just like this so much, and you loved our donuts so much, we'll do it again next month. So we really appreciate you coming. So if there's no other questions, we can sign off for now. Are we good?
Looks like we're good.
We're good. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Brandy, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. You did great, as usual.
This was a great group. Everybody was very engaged. We went through a lot of questions, so it's been really great. Thank you, everybody. And if you need anything, just let us know.
All right. Thank you. Take care now. Goodbye.